Welcome to another Out of the Park 23 video. In today's video, I'm going to highlight 5 players who I think might be, I think it's fair to say under the radar. Sometimes when people call something overrated, underrated, under the radar, etc., it's like, all right, well, how were they rated to begin with? Maybe like that was the so anyways, let's call them under the radar, and I'll try not to overthink the fact that it's like, well, under whose radar? Maybe they're very much on your radar. But let's jump right into it here. These are some players that I think you should look at maybe trying to acquire. Just check in on them. If they fit a need for your team, you might be able to acquire them for not much. Take, for example, let's look at Clay Holmes. He's a reliever for the Yankees. In every sim that I've done so far, just kind of messing around with different settings, testing out for certain bugs, etc., he ends up on waivers on opening day every year. He's only making $1 million. He is out of options, so that's one bummer. But he's an extreme ground ball guy with, OSA has him at a 70 movement, and this scout, who am I here, the Mariners, has him at a 75 movement. Especially if you play in a homer-friendly park, you play in Colorado, Baltimore, Philly, wherever else. Really, it's never bad to have an extreme ground ball guy, I guess. But especially if you're in a homer-friendly park, this is great. I think most bullpens can probably benefit from Clay Holmes. The no options thing is a little bit of a bummer. If you've got a stacked bullpen, perhaps you don't want a guy who doesn't have the flexibility of an option, but of an option year. But I think Clay Holmes is a guy, if he's on waivers in your sim, as he's been in like all of mine, I think you should take a long, hard look at him. He's probably better than one of the right-handers in your bullpen. Next, we're going to go to the Kansas City Royals, Vinnie Pestano. So this is a guy that I came to know about basically looking at projections, real-life projections in the offseason. And I think it was maybe Zips, had this guy, Vinnie P., who had never played above Double-A, and his major league projection for this year, if he were to be in the majors, I think it was Zips, maybe it was Steamer, was a 115 WRC+. He strikes out more than he walks, he walked more than he struck out in Double-A last year in 237 plate appearances. Not many players do that. That's a really special skill. The bummer is he's basically a first base DH type. If you've watched some of my sims, I really, to be a first base DH type and with no defensive ability anywhere else, you got to have a real special bat. I'm not sure if Vinny here will qualify for that. He looks like he's going to have a really good bat, but I think you can probably get him for cheap. I've been able to acquire him for cheap just messing around. I'm not going to go through all the mechanisms of the trade and what I can get people for because you might be on different settings, blah, blah, blah. But I think if you could use a major league ready left-handed hitting first base prospect type guy, I think you should look at acquiring Vinny. Really, just everything's an above average tool basically. Go see what it'll take to get him. The next guy, let's see if I can find him just through his last name. Yeah, Lorenzo Cedrola. This is a guy in the red system. How did they get him? This is one of my mess around sims that I started before the patch. But basically, man, 70 contact, 75 avoid K. Now, OSA isn't as high on him as this scout, but still, man, this is a guy I'm going to get. He's going to put so many balls in play. He's not going to hit for any power. He's got a really bad eye, but contact, home run power, and avoid K are the 3 tools that I look at the most. And I don't love that he's a ground ball hitter. He might end up just being a 4th outfielder, but he also might end up hitting 320 for you, right? I don't know. This is a guy I think worth taking a risk on if you can get him for cheap, which I think you might be able to do. Fieldings wise, you know, he is probably left field, right field. Get him some experience in center. Maybe he'll play there for you a couple times a month. Maybe you can get him some experience at third base and he could fill in there. So maybe he could be utility-ish, but he's not a great fielder. But man, with that bat, maybe he doesn't have to be a great fielder. Next guy, let's see if I can spell his first name right. We got it. Is another Reds guy, Alejo Lopez. Now, the Mariners scout here is actually lower on him than any scout I've played with so far in doing some sims. This 70 avoid K is more in line with what I've seen. So a 60 contact and 70 avoid K, and then the gap power and I are fine. He can play second, third, and left. You could probably get him some right field and some shortstop experience. Not that he's going to be great either place, but he could probably be a super utility guy and a pretty good hitter, man. Like, if you're rocking a 60 contact and 70 avoid K and you're cheap to acquire, like, count me in. I'm in on Alejo Lopez. I'd recommend you explore that as well. Next, we're going to look on the other side of the ball, defensively. Zach Watson, Norfolk Tides, Baltimore Orioles AAA. You can see why we're here, the 70 outfield range. That's why we're here. You know, the contact and the avoid K are concerning. The eye is bad. Has some pop in his bat, which if you have a 70 range and above average power, like, I'm going to be interested. I think at worst you're looking at your AAA center fielder who comes up and plays center field if your major league center fielder with 70+ range gets hurt. You know, I don't think he's going to be everyday center fielder on a really competitive team, but you need depth. Injuries are going to happen. Maybe your fourth or fifth outfielder, maybe like you have a defensive sub or a defensive-oriented bench with an outfielder who gets hurt, or maybe you have a center fielder who's out for some period of time. You need somebody to fill in. You could do worse than Zach Watson with his 70 range, and then maybe he'll get into some. Maybe he'll maybe he'll hit a few home runs for you too. He could also be a pinch hitter. Basically, I see like my first call up in AAA outfielder type here, who could be maybe a fourth or fifth outfielder for you, defensive sub, pinch runner. He's 24, so this contact and avoid K isn't likely to do much more, but I'd be happy to have him playing center field in AAA as my quote-unquote backup in case something happens to my starting center fielder in the majors. So those are some players that I would recommend acquiring. Of course, not an exhaustive list here. There are tons of players like this. These are just some ones that I've had my eye on. As I start my main sim, I might go out and, just see what it takes to get these guys, because I've had some luck acquiring them, messing around in some of my practice sims. So that's all for this video. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll talk to you next time.